If you ever book a cheap Airbnb and the host sends you a message that says, "Please don't open the basement door. Cancel the booking." I didn't, and that was my first mistake. I booked the Airbnb last minute. Small town, one night stay, cheap price. The house looked normal in photos, old but clean. After booking, the host sent a message, "Welcome. The house is fully yours. Just one rule, do not open the basement door." That was it. No explanation. When I arrived, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The basement door was in the kitchen. Heavy wood. Locked. I laughed it off. Probably storage. At 1:43 a.m., I heard a thud. From downstairs, I froze. Then slow dragging. Like something heavy being pulled. I checked my phone. No signal. Wi-Fi gone. Then I got a notification. From the Airbnb app. Host message. "Are you alone?" I hadn't told them I arrived. Then another message came. "You weren't supposed to hear that." My heart hammered against my ribs. The air grew cold, a chill that had nothing to do with the night outside. I scrambled for my phone again, desperate for a signal, for any connection to the outside world. Nothing. The screen glowed, mocking me with its emptiness. The silence of the house pressed in, amplifying every creak of the old wood, every beat of my own frantic pulse. I crept towards the kitchen, my eyes fixed on the basement door. It was just a door, a heavy wooden barrier, but now it felt like the gateway to something unspeakable. Was it truly locked? I reached out, my fingers trembling, and touched the cold metal doorknob. It didn't budge. A small relief, quickly overshadowed by the memory of the sounds. A thud, dragging. What was down there? And who was the host, sending messages in the dead of night? Knowing I was alone, knowing what I had heard, a faint scratching sound began emanating from behind the door. It was rhythmic, insistent, like nails on wood, or something trying to claw its way out. My breath hitched. I backed away slowly, my gaze never leaving the door. My mind raced, trying to rationalize, to find a logical explanation. A rat. A loose pipe. But the messages, they weren't rational. I retreated to the living room, huddling on the sofa, pulling a blanket tight around me. Every shadow seemed to lengthen. Every whisper of the wind outside sounded like a voice. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, fueled by the eerie message and the isolation. But then a new sound, a low, guttural moan, muffled but distinct from beneath the floorboards. It wasn't human, or at least not entirely. Panic began to set in. I couldn't stay here. I had to get out. I grabbed my bag, fumbling with the zipper, my hands slick with sweat. The front door was my only escape. I moved towards it, each step a monumental effort, expecting something to lunge from the shadows. As my hand reached the doorknob, another message vibrated my phone. I almost dropped it. This time, it wasn't from the Airbnb app. It was a direct text from an unknown number. The message simply read, "Don't leave." My blood ran cold. How did they get my number? And how did they know I was trying to leave? The house felt like a trap, and I was the prey. The scratching from the basement intensified, now accompanied by a soft, rhythmic tapping, like a slow, deliberate knock. It was coming from the other side of the door, directly beneath where I stood. I could feel the vibrations through the floor. Whatever was down there, it was aware of me. It was waiting. And it was getting closer. The host said I wasn't supposed to hear that, but I definitely heard it, and now it knew I was awake. The old Airbnb was charming in a creaky, isolated sort of way. I'd booked it for a quiet weekend, a retreat from the city's relentless hum. But quiet was not what I found. It started subtly, a faint dragging sound from below, dismissed as old house noises. Until tonight, at 1:52 a.m., the basement door handle moved, slowly, like someone testing it from the inside. My breath hitched. I was alone in the house, or so I thought. The dragging sound came again, louder this time, a heavy, deliberate scrape across concrete. It was closer now. Then 3 slow, deliberate knocks echoed from the door. Knock, knock, each one a hammer blow against the silence, against my racing heart. My fingers fumbled for my phone, the screen a blinding beacon in the dark room. I messaged the host, "Eleanor, is someone else in the house?" I typed, my thumbs trembling. No response. The message remained unread, a sudden flicker. The lights in my room dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again, a nervous pulse. My phone buzzed. The Airbnb app updated. Host is nearby. What did that mean? Eleanor lived miles away, according to her profile. Was she outside? Had she returned? I crept to the window, peering through a gap in the heavy curtains. The night was still moonless. No cars, no lights, just the oppressive darkness of the surrounding woods. The air outside felt heavy, watchful. Then I heard it, a whisper, barely audible, yet it cut through the silence like a razor. My name, whispered from under the basement door. A cold dread seized me. I never told the host my name, my full name, anyway. Only my first name was on the booking. How did it know? Panic clawed at my throat. I backed away from the door, my eyes fixed on the thin gap at the bottom. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. The temperature dropped, and I could see my breath. I fumbled for the light switch, plunging the room into a harsh, unforgiving glare. The basement door seemed to loom larger, more menacing. I needed to get out. But where? The front door was downstairs, past the basement. The windows were old, stuck fast. Another whisper, clearer this time, slithering under the door. It wasn't just my name. It was a question. Why are you here? My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A prank, a squatter. But the way my name was spoken, the chilling intimacy of it, felt ancient, malevolent. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a small, ornate lamp, and held it like a weapon. The knocking started again, faster, more insistent. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a fist, not a knuckle. The door rattled in its frame. I could hear the wood groaning, splintering. It was trying to get out. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding against my ribs. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Eleanor. Don't go down there, just that, no explanation, no context. My blood ran cold. He knew what was in the basement. The rattling intensified. A crack appeared in the old wood of the door, a thin line of darkness that seemed to pulse with an unholy light. I could feel a cold draft seeping through it, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and foul. I had to escape. I ran to the window again, desperate. With a surge of adrenaline, I managed to force it open a crack. The cold night air rushed in, a welcome relief from the suffocating atmosphere of the room. I could hear the sounds of the house groaning, shifting, as if it were alive and angry. The whispers turned into a low, guttural growl, vibrating through the floorboards. The door was giving way. I could see a sliver of something dark and indistinct pushing through the crack. It was not human. I scrambled onto the windowsill, my legs dangling precariously. The fall wouldn't be pleasant, but it was better than facing whatever was in that basement. As I pushed myself out, a final chilling whisper echoed from below, a promise, a threat. You can't hide from me. I landed hard on the damp grass, pain shooting up my legs. But I didn't stop. I ran, blindly, into the dark woods. The sounds of the house, the growls, the whispers fading behind me, but never truly leaving. The basement knew, and now it knew I was gone. But for how long? Then I saw something under the door gap, a shadow, but it wasn't moving naturally. It was copying me. The shadow under the basement door wasn't random. It was mimicking my movements. Exactly, my heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the old house. I had come down to the basement for old boxes, a mundane task, now a nightmare. I tried to rationalize it, a trick of light, a figment of my imagination. I moved my hand, slowly, deliberately. The shadow copied a dark fluid extension of my own limb. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. It stepped back a fraction of a second later, like a clumsy reflection in a warped mirror. It was learning. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, colder than the damp air of the basement. What was it learning? And why? The knocking, which had been a constant unsettling rhythm from somewhere deeper within the house, stopped abruptly. Now it was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that screams louder than any noise. A vacuum that pulls at your sanity. Every creak of the old house became amplified, sinister. I felt utterly alone, yet intensely watched. Then my phone buzzed again, a jarring intrusion into the oppressive quiet. My hand trembled as I pulled it from my pocket. A new message from the host. My blood ran cold as I read the words, "Do not go near the door." A wave of confusion washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of fear. Why? What was behind that door? And how did the host know I was even near it? Before I could process the first message, another one flashed across the screen. But if it copies you completely, leave immediately. My heart was racing, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Completely. What does that mean? The word echoed in my mind, each syllable a hammer blow against my composure. Was it not copying me completely already? The slight delay, the clumsy imitation. Was that the key? Was it imperfect now, but striving for perfection? The implications were horrifying. I stared at the shadow under the door, a formless void that seemed to pulse with a malevolent intelligence. It was still there, a silent sentinel, waiting. My mind raced, trying to piece together this terrifying puzzle. The host's cryptic warnings, the mimicking shadow, the sudden silence. Then I heard footsteps upstairs, a distinct heavy tread moving across the bedroom floor directly above me. But I was downstairs, and I was the only one in the house. My blood froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. The sound was unmistakable. The creak of floorboards under weight, the soft thud of a footfall. It wasn't a mouse or the wind. It was something or someone moving with purpose. Panic began to set in, a cold, creeping dread that threatened to consume me. I was trapped between a mimicking shadow and an unseen presence upstairs. The house, once a temporary refuge, had become a cage. I backed away from the basement door, my eyes darting between the ominous shadow and the ceiling above. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, moving from one side of the room to the other, then back again. It was pacing. A low, guttural sound, barely audible, seemed to emanate from the floorboards above. It wasn't a growl, more like a deep, resonant hum, a sound of anticipation. My breath hitched. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The host's messages replayed in my mind. Do not go near the door. If it copies you completely, leave immediately. What if it wasn't just copying my movements? What if it was copying something deeper? My thoughts, my fears, the very essence of me. The idea was monstrous, a violation of the self. I felt a profound sense of vulnerability, as if my very being was being scrutinized, analyzed, and replicated by an unknown entity. The footsteps upstairs stopped. The silence returned, even more profound than before. I held my breath, straining my ears, waiting for any sound, any sign. The shadow under the door remained, a silent, unmoving threat. The air grew colder, and I could almost feel the weight of an unseen gaze upon me. Then, with a soft, almost imperceptible click, the basement door unlocked by itself. The sound was tiny, yet it echoed like a gunshot in the suffocating silence. My eyes widened in horror. I hadn't touched it. No one else was here. The lock had simply disengaged, as if by an invisible hand. And I realized the rule wasn't for my protection. It was for containment. I wasn't meant to be safe from whatever was behind that door. I was meant to keep it in. And now it was free.
When the basement door unlocked, I finally understood something terrifying. The host wasn't protecting me. They were protecting the outside world. The door creaked open slightly. Darkness inside, not empty darkness. Heavy darkness, like depth. Then I saw movement, a shape forming. Not fully human, but shaped like me. Standing upright, breathing. Its face wasn't clear, but its outline was mine. My height, my build. It stepped toward the stairs, and the Airbnb app buzzed again. If it leaves the house, it becomes permanent. I realized the house wasn't haunted. It was a trap. Guests weren't renters. They were templates. Then I heard my own voice behind me say, "Don't let me out." I heard my own voice behind me, but I was alone. Or at least, I thought I was. I turned around, and there I was, standing in the kitchen. Calm, still, watching. The version in the basement was incomplete. The version behind me was finished. It smiled, not evil, not angry, just aware. How many copies were walking outside right now? The app buzzed again. One of you must stay. I realized something. The house doesn't create copies randomly. It replaces slowly. One stays, one leaves. I ran outside, got in my car, drove, never looked back. Ask yourself, are you the guest or the replacement?